The girl transmigrated into a divine beast, a little squirrel. She originally planned to save the villainous boy from a childhood that would lead to his corruption, only to realize that he was merely pretending to be pure and innocent. Every act of kindness and warmth he displayed was intentional, all in an effort to possess her entirely. However, when he discovered that the little squirrel was actually a human girl, the cunning boy found himself falling for her instead. The girl had entered a romance novel and become an 11-year-old boy's birthday gift, purchased at a steep price by the prestigious Highland family, the most powerful magic users of this era. But the stronger the mage, the greater the pain caused by an excess of magic, and only divine beasts could help stabilize that power. To prove to the world that her son possessed so much magic that he required a divine beast to suppress it, Lady Highland had spent a fortune to acquire her. Yet in reality, the boy had barely any magic at all. He struggled even to conjure a small flame. To prevent her from escaping, the girl was branded with a mark of ownership. Since divine beasts could understand simple speech, she pretended to be obedient to avoid being caged any longer. Unexpectedly, the boy found this revolting. An animal that understands human speech? Disgusting? She was furious. Hadn't he just called her cute moments ago? His mother reminded him, "This is no ordinary animal. It's a divine beast. Besides, isn't there a legend that says a divine beast can transform into a human after absorbing enough magic?" Only then did the boy seem satisfied, but soon a mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. "If you can turn human, that means I'll have another servant to boss around." Nonsense. With his pathetic level of magic, she wouldn't be transforming anytime soon. She really wanted to punch him. However, she knew that in the future, the Highland family would indeed produce an incredibly powerful mage. Though for now, that child was locked away. If she could find him, she might have a chance at becoming human again. Suddenly, a servant arrived with news. The eldest son in the tower had collapsed from a high fever. Lady Highland's voice remained indifferent. "If he's unconscious, there's no need to prepare his dinner. Let him rest." Even though he was merely an adopted son, such a cold response when a child had fallen ill was truly heartless. Perhaps his condition was even worse than hers. The little squirrel decided to bring him something. "Dance for me, slave." The young villain was ordering her around again. Ever since earlier, he hadn't stopped calling her his slave. Did he think she had no temper? The boy poked at her in boredom, muttered some complaints, and left. Finally, when night fell and the young villain was fast asleep, she took her chance. Grabbing some food supplies, she embarked on her first adventure. Thankfully, as a squirrel, she was skilled at climbing and soon reached the western tower. This must be where the eldest son was being kept. At that moment, he lay there in unbearable pain. Hearing a tapping sound from outside, he turned his gaze toward the window. A squirrel was waving at him. He sat up, puzzled. Why would a squirrel be here? "Do you want to come in?" he asked softly. He gently opened the window, and the girl stepped back, but she miscalculated her footing and slipped, plummeting downward. She had yet to witness real magic. Was this how she would die? Just as she was about to meet her end, the boy reacted swiftly, catching her just in time. "Sorry, are you okay?" He had nearly become squirrel jerky. But this strange sensation, was it magic? The mere act of touching him allowed her to feel an overwhelming force pressing in from all directions. How much pain must he be in? With that thought, she reached out, attempting to calm his magic. The moment their hands touched again, the violent energy within him suddenly ceased, and the pain disappeared. He hadn't felt this relieved in so long. "So, you're a divine beast?" The little squirrel nodded. "You have the mark of the Highland family on you. You must be Tizen's divine beast. Why did you come here?" As soon as he finished speaking, the boy realized he was talking to an animal. How could it possibly answer? He chuckled awkwardly. The little squirrel, however, found this side of him somewhat endearing. Is it because he's still young? He's so slow-witted that he doesn't seem like the future great villain at all. The boy's name was Johann Highland, the final antagonist of this novel. His mother, the former Duchess, had passed away when he was a child. After marrying Ella, the Highland Duke had a son, Tizen. Not long after, the Duke went to war, leaving Johann to grow up alone. To make matters worse, at the age of 10, Johann manifested magical powers. The uncontrollable surges of magic caused him immense suffering. Ella, who wanted her own son to inherit the duchy, despised Johann. Under the guise of treating his condition, she locked him away in Tarong. Later, she sent him to the battlefield. After 5 years of war, Johann returned as a hero, but that was only the beginning of his tragedy. As a reward for his service, the emperor bestowed upon him the most beautiful princess in the empire. Johann fell for her at first sight, but she had already given her heart to another. Consumed by jealousy, he resorted to ruthless means to tear them apart, becoming the villain of the story. Yet now, looking at this kind and innocent child, it was hard to believe he would one day become the world's greatest villain. The boy anxiously picked at his fingers. "When I touch you, I feel better. Can I pet you?" The little squirrel sighed. He really was adorable, completely different from someone else. With permission granted, Johann gently stroked her, his smile warm and gentle. "I've been alone here for so long. This is the first time someone has stayed with me when I felt this awful. Just now I was in so much pain, and I was lonely too. If I had been born into an ordinary family? No. If I had never been born at all, maybe that would have been better. I was drowning in these thoughts until you came. Thanks to you, for the first time, I'm neither in pain nor alone. Really, thank you." His bright, sunny smile stirred a protective instinct in the little squirrel. No. She had to focus on absorbing magic and returning to her original form as soon as possible. The boy looked at her expectantly. "Can you come again tomorrow? You don't have to help calm me down. Just seeing you would be enough." That cautious plea made the little squirrel's heart ache. She nodded enthusiastically. "You don't even have to ask. I'll come every day no matter what." "Thank you." The little squirrel was almost certain now. Johann must have endured too much pain alone over the years. That was why he had become a villain, capable of destroying everything. If someone had cared for him back then, would he still have turned out the same way? Even though she was just a squirrel, she would do her best to be good to him. She would protect this pure and fragile child. Johann was surprised. "For me?" He picked up the little squirrel, touching her gently in gratitude. "Starting tomorrow night, I'll leave my window open. You can come find me any time." The little squirrel happily bid him farewell. But the moment she left, Johann's smile vanished. Just moments ago, he had been in terrible pain. Was this the calming power of a divine beast? His expression darkened. "Tizen's divine beast will be mine." Tizen Highland, eager to transform the little squirrel into a human as soon as possible, gathered books related to divine beasts. He roughly grabbed the squirrel and examined its gender. Based on its fur patterns, it appeared to be female. "No, you're a girl. That means you'll turn into a little girl in the future. Hopefully you'll be older than me. That way it'll be easier for me to boss you around." The little squirrel, pained by the rough handling of its tail, became furious. "Humph. Once I become human, I won't have anything to do with you. I'll ask Johann Highland to remove the imprint for me." Thinking of that kind and gentle boy, the squirrel was certain he would help. As long as it could become human, everything else would fall into place. It was tired of eating nuts all the time. Late at night, the boy held an acorn left behind by the little squirrel. "Is she not coming tonight?" As the thought surfaced, his gaze darkened. He should have acted even more pitiful back then. Suddenly, soft footsteps echoed from below. A small paw appeared. It was his little squirrel back again. The girl waved at him and he smiled. "You came again today." The squirrel thought, "This guy is still ridiculously good-looking." Little did it know, the boy had already begun his plan to lure it in. Climbing all the way up here must have been tiring. Was it dangerous? He patted the pillow beside him. "Rest here for a bit. I want you to be comfortable." The squirrel, completely taken in, excitedly patted the pillow in return. Come, come, I'll offer you enthusiastic service as well. The boy was surprised. You're asking me to lie down? At the squirrel's insistence, he obediently did so. Since you gave me an acorn, I wanted to give you something in return. I've chosen a name for you. Right. He still didn't have a name. That little brat always called her slave, and it was driving her insane. Happily, he pressed his cheek against Johan's. This pretty boy is much better. How about Paul? Seeing the squirrel's rejection, he tried again. You don't like it? What about Tom or Calvin? Watching the squirrel shake its head at each suggestion, he sighed dramatically. What do I do? Those are the only names I can think of. The squirrel, once again captivated by the boy's looks, decided to let him off the hook this time. I wanted something cuter, though. As they spoke, the squirrel continued absorbing magic, taking in far more than the previous day. It almost felt like it was overflowing. Sensing this, it withdrew its hand. Progress is going well. Mission accomplished for today. Just then, its body suddenly began to glow. Small hands, curly brown hair. When the boy opened his eyes again, his heart nearly stopped. He shot upright. Before him was an adorable girl with pink eyes. You, who are you? The squirrel panicked as well. I'm... It suddenly realized it could speak. That's when it hit. It had actually transformed into a human. Small hands, a young voice. This is amazing. As it marveled at itself, the boy swiftly grabbed the blanket and wrapped it tightly around the girl. His usual composed demeanor crumbled into stammering. Cover yourself properly first. The girl thanked him. Did I scare you? The boy's face flushed red. What the hell is going on? Scratching her head, the squirrel explained, Divine beasts can transform into humans. But just as she finished speaking, she suddenly reverted back into a squirrel. So that was the secret. Absorbing a large amount of magic in a short time could temporarily turn her human. However, for a permanent transformation, she needed to absorb magic continuously for 50 days. If he transforms into a human before reaching 50 days, all the magic he has accumulated will be completely depleted. Through Tizen, the little squirrel finally understands his situation. The mischievous brat, looking annoyed, actually had the ridiculous idea of making the squirrel count the days himself. But as Tizen read aloud, the girl had an idea. When she went to find John again, she brought something, a guide on how divine beasts transform into humans. Since I can't communicate with you, I brought this for you to see. It will give you a vivid performance. John immediately guessed that it had been torn from Tizen's book. The little squirrel hadn't expected him to figure it out in just one glance. He really was smart. The girl gently nuzzled his cheek. The cunning little one was delighted. Are you praising me? So, if you absorb magic continuously for 50 days, you can transform into a human? 50 days? Then he can see him in that form again? He looked adorable. Without realizing it, he had voiced his thoughts aloud, prompting the little squirrel to ask about it. Flustered, he quickly brushed it off, but deep inside, he eagerly anticipated seeing him in his human form once more. Every time it rained, the boy was forced to stand in the downpour. His stepmother, under the pretense of treating his illness, subjected him to this torment, while his younger brother treated his suffering as an amusing game. Only the little squirrel knew that the boy was already in unbearable pain from the magic coursing through him, and now he had to endure this abuse as well. No wonder he would one day turn into the great villain. As the little squirrel pondered how to help, Tizen suddenly tossed him aside. I'll go help treat our poor brother too. That little brat was clearly going to bully him instead. No, he had to save the boy. He gathered as many sturdy nuts as he could, stuffing them into his mouth as well. Just hold on a little longer, I'm almost there. It was clear that Harold's stepmother saw him as a thorn in her side. Ever since she learned that he was born with magic, she had been looking for ways to get rid of him. However, due to the prolonged war that had weakened the emperor's power, the royal family feared the growing influence of the nobility. To counter this, the emperor decreed that noble family heads must fight on the battlefield, and if they perished, Their direct relatives had to take their place. She had kept John alive only because she didn't want her own son to be sent to war. The boy was in terrible condition. He pleaded with the maid to slow down, but she arrogantly refused and instead urged him to move faster. The little squirrel grew increasingly furious. Despite seeing him in such a state, they showed not a shred of compassion. But that was fine. The little squirrel raised a nut high. Maybe no one in this house is willing to stand by your side, but now I will fight alongside you. He launched the nut with perfect accuracy, hitting each of the maids square in the eyes, leaving none unscathed. The nuts tumbled to the ground at his feet. The boy picked one up. Had he been searching for him? Sure enough, he spotted the little squirrel gesturing wildly, as if urging him to leave quickly. Without hesitation, the boy turned and ran back to the clock tower. Just as the squirrel was about to retreat, he heard the young villain's furious roar. "I went through so much trouble to fetch water. Where did he go?" The maids trembled in fear, hurriedly explaining that he had slipped away when they weren't paying attention. But the young villain had already begun venting his anger on them. "Assistant Tezen!" The boy turned back and complained to Ella. "Mother, you finally found an interesting toy and now they let it escape." "Tezen, how can you call him a toy? Weren't you trying to help treat your brother?" "That's right, I am helping my brother." "It's all right, Tezen. Even if you didn't get to see your brother today, there's no need to be disappointed. Since there will be guests arriving tomorrow, wouldn't it be more fun to greet them together with your brother?" So, it's the arrival of Mary's palace maid, who is also the female lead of the novel. The little squirrel was shocked. According to the original plot, they were supposed to meet only after the war. Had the storyline changed because of his interference? Today, Johann hadn't obediently allowed himself to be bullied, so they were planning to humiliate him in front of everyone tomorrow. This mother and son were truly vicious. But before he could think further, Ella suddenly mentioned him, suggesting that he bring his divine beast to showcase his magical talent. After returning to his room, the boy endured the pain and opened the window, wondering if the little squirrel might come. Initially, he had only intended to use him. If he could suppress his magic with the divine beast's power, wouldn't he be able to destroy this disgusting ducal household? But when he learned that the squirrel needed his magic to transform into a human, he actually felt relieved, because that meant the squirrel would keep coming to him. He thought their relationship was merely one of mutual exploitation, at least that's what he believed, until that tiny creature stood up for him first. The little squirrel appeared, leaping onto the boy's shoulder. "You came. Thank you so much for today. Thanks to you, I didn't get drenched in the rain." He spoke between bites, while the little squirrel stretched out its paw to comfort him. The boy smiled and assured him that he was fine, rubbing his cheek gently against the squirrel. So, could he trust him? After all, he was the only one in his life who had ever stood by his side. Witnessing his younger brother bullying the little squirrel, the boy's anger erupted, causing his magic to surge uncontrollably. And yet, just a simple touch from Tezen was enough to drive him mad with jealousy. In an attempt to console the sick and gloomy young villain, the little squirrel exposed its fluffy belly. At that moment, one forgot he was human, and the other forgot she was a girl. The young villain absent-mindedly stroked the little squirrel, finding its warmth and softness incredibly soothing. Drowsiness overtook the squirrel under his gentle touch, unaware of the increasingly crazed look in the boy's eyes. He murmured softly, "I wish I could stay with you forever." Just then, a piece of paper brought by the little squirrel fluttered to the ground, revealing a passage. "A magician will develop an intense possessiveness toward the divine beast that stabilizes his magic. So much so that merely seeing the beast with another magician will overwhelm him with unbearable jealousy." The next day, the little squirrel was scrubbed until it gleamed before being presented to Tezen. The previous night, the boy had even applied a face mask just to look his best, making the squirrel itch to stomp all over his smooth, villainous face. Tezen dramatically pushed open the door. "Sorry, I'm late. I was stabilizing my magic with the divine beast." He really took advantage of the fact that the squirrel couldn't talk, spewing nonsense without hesitation. But why did it feel like something nearby was glowing? Mariel was breathtaking, worthy of being the female lead of the novel. Suddenly he became curious about Johan's reaction. After all, in their past life, Johan had fallen for her at first sight. Unexpectedly, however, the boy was staring at him instead. "Oh my, is that a divine beast?" Muriel exclaimed. "I've heard they're incredibly rare and difficult to obtain. This is my first time seeing one." Her mother smiled. For the young master to have so much magic that he needs a divine beast, he truly takes after Duke Highland. Tizen's tail almost wagged itself into the sky. "I still have a long way to go compared to my father. But without the divine beast, my magic would be difficult to control." "How exactly does a divine beast help stabilize magic?" someone asked. Tizen suddenly pressed his hand onto the little squirrel's head. Johan's pupils shrank instantly. "My divine beast works like this. Just placing my hand on his head is enough. After that, the pain in his body would gradually fade." The little squirrel noticed the cup beside him trembling. Or rather, the entire space seemed to be subtly vibrating. Suddenly, the cup near John shattered. Ella assumed he had knocked it over. "I saw you weren't feeling well earlier. Your body must be uncomfortable, right? But this is an important occasion. You need to maintain your composure." Only the little squirrel knew that the disturbance had been caused by a surge of magical energy. Was this a side effect of being caught in the rain? He anxiously rushed toward the boy, but accidentally stepped on a puddle and was sent flying. A hand reacted swiftly, catching him just in time. "You need to be more careful," the boy's voice murmured, audible only to him. "When I'm not around, don't wander off. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you." Even if he was slow to realize, he could tell something was wrong with the boy. Tizen stood up as well. "Thanks, John. So, can you return my squirrel now?" Instead of handing it back immediately, John merely smiled. "Tizen, what's this little squirrel's name?" The young villain looked guilty. "Why do you want to know?" "A divine beast this rare, surely it can't just be called yours or mine all the time," John pointed out. "Judging by your reaction, you haven't named it yet, have you?" Tizen flushed red. "He's called New—" The last syllable rolled around on his tongue before he swallowed it back. He had always called the squirrel slave, slave. But only now did he realize that might not be appropriate. "Serves you right," John smirked. "Since you always call me that." "Then let me name him," Marrier suddenly interjected. "He's just too adorable." "Of course," Tizen said. "It's an honor to have a palace maiden name him." The little squirrel immediately scampered toward the girl. "I'll give you a beautiful name. Your fluffy tail is so cute and your jet black eyes are lovely. How about Little Black?" The squirrel was stunned. How basic. Everyone except John praised the name, but he absolutely hated it. "Little Black, I'm so happy to meet you today." As the palace maiden touched him, he suddenly felt a surge of magic, but before he could confirm it, she withdrew her hand. A fine golden thread was now tied around his leg. The little squirrel thanked her. He liked gold. "Hey, Little Black, come here. You need to stay by your master's side," Tizen called out. He really disliked Tizen, but for John's sake. If he disobeyed now, that brat might vent his anger on the boy. Resigned, he ran toward the young villain. Tizen looked smug. "Good job," Marrier exclaimed enviously. "Little Black listens to his master so well. Maybe because we've been communicating telepathically while he was helping calm me down." John forced himself to look away, clenching his fists as he endured. Far away in the magic tower, a man and a woman were deep in discussion. Do we need to retrieve the squirrel that was sold to Highland? Yes, the current experiments require that specific squirrel. But aren't there plenty of other divine beasts? No, the results won't be as accurate without that one. Besides, this is Highland we're talking about. If that squirrel turns back into a human, things could get complicated. He might remember the experiments. "You don't need to worry about that," the man reassured her. "I confirmed with Lady Highland that her son has almost no magical power. The temple usually only sells divine beasts to nobles with weak magic." The woman still wasn't satisfied. "That squirrel must be retrieved." A knocking sound echoed from outside. Meanwhile, the little squirrel appeared at the boy's window once again. You don't have to knock every time, the boy said softly. I've always been waiting for you. As of today, he had been absorbing the boy's magic for over 40 days. The little schemer had gone out of his way to bathe and make himself look clean and fragrant, all in anticipation of the squirrel's arrival. But upon seeing his fresh appearance, the only emotion the little squirrel felt was the satisfaction of watching a stray he had raised finally grow up. As the boy sat down, the little squirrel immediately extended its tiny paws. Let me help you calm down. Wait a moment. Let's take it slow today. Every time I stabilize you, you leave right away. Stay with me a little longer, okay? Seeing the hopeful gaze of the little black-furred creature, he couldn't bear to refuse. Waving his hand, he signaled that he understood. The boy smiled happily. You agreed, didn't you? Thank you. The little squirrel began to examine the boy. Is your hair fun to play with? It let out a satisfied squeak, soft and smooth. Suddenly, the boy noticed that the golden thread the palace maid had given him was still there. Remembering that he had named the squirrel Little Black made his mood inexplicably sour. If your name is Little Black, that's just unacceptable. You should have a cuter name. How about I call you Mau Mau from now on? The little black-furred creature looked at him expectantly. Did it like the name? Of course not. This guy was really bad at naming things. But since he had already accepted Little Black, rejecting this new name might make the boy unhappy. Thinking this, the squirrel nodded. Right? I think it suits you too. Fluffy, tiny, and adorable. Mau Mau, the boy continued. Was our meeting just a coincidence? Why do I feel like it was meant to be? Unfortunately, the little squirrel could only answer in its heart. I traveled through time with a purpose to find you, so it wasn't a coincidence at all. The boy suddenly reached out and flicked its ear. Sorry, you're just too cute. Such a small and fragile creature, yet always thinking about protecting me. To him, it was truly precious. Too special. I'll make sure you have all the gold you want, give you the best room, and provide you with everything you desire. I'll make you happier than when you were with Tizan. From now on, I'll be the one protecting you. But instead of feeling happy, the little squirrel felt a wave of sadness. Because soon the boy would be sent to the battlefield. The temple would develop a new calming potion. As long as he drank it, his magic would stabilize. He would become strong and no longer need the squirrel, or even remember a divine beast like it. But until that day comes, I'll give my all to stay by your side. Not long after, a carriage from the temple arrived. The high priest, using the excuse that the divine beast sold to Helid had no actual calming abilities, demanded the squirrel be returned. As compensation, he brought a potion that could suppress magical instability, explaining that Duke Helid used the same medication. Isla had bought the divine beast at a high price to prove her son's immense magical talent. While a potion didn't hold the same prestige as a divine beast, it was still the same one Tizan's father used, so it didn't really matter. With that in mind, she accepted the potion. But recently, she had noticed something strange about Johann. When a maid was attacked by nuts, he ran straight back to Tara without looking back. Though he had never resisted orders before, his actions made her uneasy. There's no need for compensation, she said. I heard the temple has a potion that turns people into easily controlled puppets. Yet she and the high priest remained oblivious to the fact that the little squirrel had overheard their entire conversation. Saying the divine beast had no calming abilities, were they really willing to lie just to take it away? In the original timeline, at some point the squirrel had indeed disappeared. It didn't remember what had happened back then, but it knew one thing for certain. It would never go back there. But there was an even bigger problem. Isla wanted to harm Johann. If that was the case, then in the original timeline, Johann must have obtained the temple's potion to win over Mary. I can't let Johann end up like that. Meanwhile, the boy was busy organizing documents. The sudden intrusion of the little squirrel interrupted him. You? Why are you here? It's daytime. You'll be easily spotted. The little squirrel frantically gestured. Help me erase this mark. You're in danger too. Ella wants to harm you. But how could the boy possibly understand such a complex message? He was stunned. You want to kill me because of heartbreak? This couldn't go on. He might as well transform back into a human and explain everything clearly. He had thought countless times about keeping the girl by his side, but in the end, he had chosen to let her go. To save the little dark-hearted boy, the squirrel once again transformed into a human before his eyes. Grabbing the boy firmly, he pleaded, "Listen carefully. I don't have time to explain everything in detail. The temple wants to take me away." To the boy, this revelation was like a bolt of lightning. "Take you away? What do you mean?" "They say I lack the ability to stabilize magic, so they want to reclaim me. It felt suspicious, so I decided to escape immediately." "So you're leaving?" "Yes." "Please, John, erase this mark for me. Only if it's gone can I leave Highland. I don't want to be taken by the temple and die like this." Despite his reluctance, the boy still knelt before her. "Don't worry, I'll remove it now. I would never just stand by and watch you die." His fingers brushed lightly over the mark, and in an instant it vanished without a trace. Finally, she could leave. "Thank you, John. Thanks to you, I can survive." "But now you're in danger too. Ella plans to drug you, turning you into a puppet with no will of your own. The drug only activates under warmth. Remember, only eat cold food. And just hold on a little longer. Soon you'll be on the battlefield. By then you'll have access to stabilizers and won't have to endure the pain of uncontrolled magic anymore." Suddenly, the dark-hearted boy grabbed her hand. "That's not what I'm worried about. Did you really use up all the magic you'd accumulated just to tell me this? You wanted so badly to become human, and now you have to start over again?" "It's fine," the little squirrel reassured him, gently stroking his hair. "I will become human again, no matter what. Don't worry about me. Just promise me you'll stay safe, okay?" The boy pressed his lips together and nodded. "My life is yours. I'll do as you say. I'll survive here." "Where will you go now?" Just as she was about to answer, her magic depleted, and she transformed back into a squirrel. Chaotic footsteps sounded from outside. Someone was coming upstairs. "You need to leave now," the boy urged. "Go as fast as you can. Use the trees to stay out of sight. And if you're not satisfied with the place you absorb magic from, come back and find me. Even if I'm on the battlefield, I'll protect you. Now go. I'll hold them off. Don't worry about me." The little squirrel nuzzled against him reluctantly. "You're not a villain, John. No one as kind and good as you could ever be one. You mean you're telling me to live well and take care of myself, right?" Frustrated, the squirrel huffed. "That's not what I meant at all." With that, she leapt out the window, glancing back at the little dark-hearted boy one last time. "I'm sorry for leaving you alone in this isolated place, but I believe you'll overcome everything and grow strong. Meeting the real you, beyond the words that painted you as a villain, has been my greatest fortune." And with that, they parted. Even after her figure disappeared completely, he stubbornly kept his gaze on the window. She was really gone. There were still so many things he wanted to do for her. A shout from outside broke his thoughts. "Found the squirrel!" "He has a mark on him. He won't get far." "They actually sold the sacred beast from the temple to Tizan? That's too much." He found it odd. That boy barely has any magical power. He would never let him go back to that place again. "Young Master, excuse me. Have you seen Young Master Tizan's sacred beast? It's a squirrel named Little Black." "I haven't seen it." "They actually named it Little Black? What a terrible name." "Just in case, let me search the room." Without waiting for permission, he began rummaging through the room, muttering to himself, "Even if it's just for the reward, I have to find that squirrel. What happens if you don't find it? Probably won't get any peace. Who knows if I'll even be able to sleep tonight. How about this? Find a dead squirrel and bring it to me. I'll mark it with the Highland family symbol so everyone thinks it's the sacred beast. You can just say it was already bitten to death by hunting dogs. Even if the real one shows up later, you can just deny everything. If you're willing to help, I'd be grateful, but why are you doing this? You have to secretly bring me food. Stale bread or something will do." He pretended to be weak, acting as if it were hunger that had drained his strength. His opponent didn't suspect a thing. "I'll come back once I find the squirrel." Once he left, John finally let out a breath of relief. This should be enough to fool the temple. However, as he glanced at the bed, It was as if he could still see her lingering presence there. For a brief moment, he had hesitated. He didn't want to remove the mark, nor did he want the girl to leave his side. But surviving was the most important thing. If there was anything in his life more important than his own safety, it was her. He believed she was smart enough to escape successfully. At some point, seeing her had become more important to him than suppressing his magic. But now, those quiet nights of waiting would be gone forever. After the little squirrel left, John, just as he had foreseen, was sent to the battlefield. When the palace maid, Mary, opened the window, she was startled to see the exhausted little squirrel, with that familiar golden thread on its leg. "Wait, are you Little Black?" When the squirrel woke again, he was lying on a soft cushion. "You're awake?" Mary brought food. Having traveled non-stop, he had barely eaten. "Little Black, you sure can eat." "Is it really that good?" He chirped in response, nodding eagerly. "There's plenty. Eat as much as you like. But how did you end up here? Highland is quite far from here." "She wants to send me back?" "No way. I just escaped. I need to find a way to tell her." Jumping off the table, he ran to the girl's desk, flipping through documents and slapping his paw against the words. Mary stepped closer and read aloud where his paw pointed. She gasped. "Wait, were you abused by the Highland family? How could they do that? Is that why you escaped?" The little squirrel rubbed against her in confirmation. Mary was utterly charmed. Now that she thought about it, at the last tea party, Tizen's personality seemed off. He wasn't even polite to his own brother. "There's no way I'm giving you back to the Highland family. From now on, I'll protect you. Don't worry." After the temple received news of the little squirrel's supposed death, the woman still had concerns. The high priest reassured her, "Most sacred beasts lack the strong will to transform into humans, so you don't need to worry too much. That one likely won't either." Meanwhile, the little squirrel's transformation plan was progressing smoothly. Mary's maid possessed magical powers that were just as strong as John's, but what was strange was that her magic was incredibly stable. How did she manage to do that? "Little Black, I'm here." The girl appeared before him, looking exhausted while the little squirrel chattered. "What happened to you?" "Oh, I'm just a bit tired," replied Mary. "I couldn't even sleep this time because of the war and things have been tough." "I understand, but the whole country is at war. You couldn't even get any rest, yet you're still supporting them?" Mary seemed to understand her frustration as she spoke, holding back tears. The heroine in the garden, though beautiful and kind, didn't understand people's hearts or politics, and was often exploited by those with ulterior motives. As a result, the Medster family quickly fell from grace. Just look at how they treated her, and you'll understand. Those people were truly too much, taking advantage of such a kind child to that extent. She decided to help the girl. The squirrel pointed to the fireplace, mimicking chopping wood, then indicated that she was very hot and made a gesture for something unnecessary. In terms of politics, the slow-witted Mary completely understood what the little squirrel meant. "You're saying it's too hot over there, and we don't need firewood, so we should have them use this instead of feet to sleep." The squirrel nodded vigorously. Yes, Little Black, you're so clever." "Little Black, if I have other worries, will you listen?" She blinked her eyes, signaling that the squirrel should speak freely. After all, she needed Mary's magic to become human, as a way of repaying her kindness. They also seemed to have a strange connection. In another room in the mansion, Mary's mother looked at the hair in her hands. "Eureka, if I had known I would lose you that day, I would never have gone to the temple. If you were still alive, you should have grown up by now. If I could see your warm pink eyes again, I would have no regrets." Under Mary's care, the little squirrel had spent the most pleasant days of its life, surrounded by kindness from everyone. "This place is really wonderful." Just then, it heard a crying sound. Curious, it leaned over to the window to look inside. It was Duchess Medster. She had been getting worse lately. The squirrel decided to investigate. When the Duchess opened her eyes, she saw a small creature looking at her. "I heard Mary recently adopted a squirrel. Is that you?" "This is the hair from my daughter Eureka. She had light brown hair and pink eyes. The true reason for the fall of the Metzger family was that direct descendants often went missing. Now only Mary remained. After losing Eureka, the Duchess's health had worsened. Though the squirrel couldn't help her directly, it wanted to comfort her. "You mean I should rub your belly, and that will make you feel better?" The Duchess thanked her gently. For some reason, just seeing this squirrel made her feel calm. "Would you come here often? I'll prepare lots of delicious food for you." The little squirrel perked up its ears and smiled. It loved the place and this kind, gentle mother and daughter. Meanwhile, at the Haired family, John had already donned his armor. "Young master, it's time to depart." The little servant, Black Eyes, spoke coldly. "I'll head down right away." The Duke of Haired had died on the battlefield, and John couldn't even clearly remember what his father looked like. He felt indifferent about the death announcement. But what was important was that everything the little squirrel had said had come true. If it weren't for the girl, he probably would have lost himself and become Era's puppet. Though he didn't know how she had known all of this, he chose to trust her. She would step onto the battlefield, and once the war ended, she would eliminate the Highland who had discarded her and the temple that had threatened the girls. After parting ways with the little squirrel, John never once forgot about her. He had long considered the girl his only family, eagerly awaiting the day they would reunite. Meanwhile, the little squirrel stayed by Mary's side, absorbing enough magic to transform into a human. He was ready to explain everything to the palace maid, so without hesitation, he transformed right before the girl's eyes. Mary sat there in disbelief. "Little Black, what's going on?" she asked. "I'll explain everything," he replied. Just then, Lady Medicis arrived, and upon seeing the girl who resembled her second daughter so closely, she was overjoyed. "Eureka, is it really you?" she exclaimed. "Has the god heard my prayers?" The shock, combined with her weakened body, made her faint. The little squirrel panicked, never expecting things to go so wrong. Fortunately, the doctor said the lady's condition wasn't critical and that she would wake up in a few hours, though no further emotional shock could be allowed. Mary sat dumbfounded on the couch, and the little squirrel hesitated. The girl snapped out of her daze. "I'm sorry, I must have scared you. My sister's hair and eye color are just like yours, which is why my mother made the mistake." "No, it's the palace maid's fault," she said apologetically. Mary smiled. "So, you've become human now, right?" The little squirrel blushed a little. "How did you know?" "I read some books about divine beasts. But isn't it supposed to take 50 days of continuous absorption to gain that much magic?" she asked. "Well, actually, I absorbed the palace maid's magic," the little squirrel admitted. Mary was stunned. "But I can't use magic at all." "I don't really know why, but you definitely have incredibly strong magic," the little squirrel said nervously, worried that Mary might be upset with her for using her magic. To her surprise, the girl said something different. "So, did I help you?" she asked with a smile. "I'm so happy." She really is an angel, thought the little squirrel. When she realized that the little squirrel hadn't fully thought through what would come next, Mary suddenly proposed, "Would you like to be my sister?" She added quickly, "I know this is a selfish request, but my time with my mother is running out. I want her to spend her remaining days happily, finding joy in having her daughter back." Madame Medicis, the biological mother of Mary, had passed away before Mary came of age from the pain of losing her daughter. She was a very kind and warm person, treating her like her own mother. Noticing the little squirrel's hesitation, Mary continued, "I'm sorry if this puts any pressure on you, but I really hope you can stay. Actually, I don't want to be apart from you. Thanks to you, my mother's health has improved so much, and you've helped me and Medicis. Your presence makes me feel supported." She looked down, feeling guilty. "I've already received so much help from you. Asking you for this may seem shameless." "No, it's me who's shameless," the little squirrel replied. She had no reason to refuse, because becoming Medicis' adopted daughter brought many benefits, but what made her want to stay wasn't that. It was because there was a group of people here who treated her, someone who couldn't speak, as family. She wanted to repay them. "I agree," she said finally. "I'll be Eureka." Miri hugged her excitedly. Really? Then I'll call you Eureka from now on. Please take care of me, sister. Miri's heart skipped a beat at the word sister. She was so happy she felt like she might faint. The little squirrel had made up her mind, for Miri and the lady's sake. She must protect the wealth and reputation of Modeste, as well as find a way to help the madam of the bureau. Soon, news spread across the territory that Modeste had found his second daughter, but most people thought she was an imposter. However, the little squirrel didn't mind. She had no intention of hiding her identity and decided to travel openly. Her first stop was the orphanage, where the most renowned doctor in the country had once worked. He was also the one who cured the severely ill crown prince, Renette. She had spent a long time living in the orphanage before having the chance to stand out. She wanted to find him in advance. The madam of the bureau was always kind to her, and this warmth made her very happy, as if she truly had a mother. So, she needed to find Renette and let him go to the academy to study and cure the madam's illness. While touring the orphanage, she saw a boy reading in the corner. "Hello?" she greeted. The boy hastily dropped his book. "Sorry, I didn't hear the sound. I didn't know you were here." "It's fine. I've disturbed you. But what book are you so focused on?" Hearing someone interested in his hobby, the boy began to talk excitedly. "This is a newly published medical book. Could this be him?" "What's your name?" she asked. "I'm Renette Cardin." She never expected to find him so easily. "Renette, are you interested in medicine? Do you want to go to medical school?" The boy lowered his head, hesitating. Just as he was about to refuse, the director suddenly appeared. "Renette, stop lying." The boy quickly hid the book behind his back. "No, I'm not interested in medicine." The director sighed. "There's no helping it. Your Highness, would you be willing to sponsor us?" Renette is very interested in medicine and has a talent for it, but he's been too afraid to speak up, worried it might burden the orphanage. "I don't want him to miss this opportunity." No wonder when he first arrived, she noticed the director's strange gaze. It turned out this was the reason. The boy, however, was becoming anxious. "I don't want to go there. My friends are all here. I just want to read on my own." "Renette, we know you've been secretly reading the medical school applications every day. Yes, you've been hiding them, but the whole orphanage knows." The little squirrel also joined the persuasion group. "You have a talent for medicine. If you miss the chance to learn, your family here will be sad for you. I swear by the name of Modeste, I'll sponsor your education here so you can focus on your studies. So, would you like to go to medical school and receive formal education?" The boy eventually accepted the sponsorship, successfully found a doctor, and gathered the orphanage's information. He suddenly thought of little Squirrel. When he was still a divine beast, he would always prepare to meet him at this time. He wondered how he was doing now. At that moment, the boy also missed him. "Young master, aren't you going to eat?" he asked. He made a quiet gesture, and only then did the man notice the peanuts and seeds placed on the stone. "Oh, he often collects nuts," the boy remarked. There was a rustling sound from the tree above. "Oh, isn't that a squirrel?" "Maybe it's hungry. It's eating quite happily." Little Squirrel smiled. "Who says not?" No matter how many times it happened, he could never get used to the young master's expression. But little Squirrel was just borrowing the thing for personal reasons. He wondered how he was doing. Every time the evening glow appeared, John would think of the girl, because it was around this time. It was the moment he was waiting for, when the little squirrel would run towards him. "Once the war is over, I will come find you," he promised. "When you become human, you will have nowhere to go, no family. Then we will live together. In the future, we will be each other's only family." Mary's uncle and the little squirrel did not get along, but he was someone who deeply loved his niece. He cherished her so much that he was afraid to lose her, treating her as if she were something delicate. He was an upright person with a soft heart, though his stern exterior made him seem harsh. Tragically, he died young due to poisoning, leaving Mary isolated after her mother passed away, with no one to rely on, until she met the prince, the main character of the story. This was the story, as the little squirrel knew it from the original. Rather than having her sister saved by the male lead, he wanted Mary to become a citizen who had everything. But her uncle harbored animosity toward him. Not only did he ignore him, but he also spoke harshly to Mary. However, this did not deter him. "Hey, what's your name?" The little squirrel froze. "My name is Eureka," he replied. "No, I mean your real name," the uncle insisted. "Forget it. I won't argue with him. He has a name, okay? My real name is—" The rest of the words got stuck in his throat, and he struggled to speak. "My name is Little Black." The uncle was stunned. How could someone have such a name? The drunken culprit laughed foolishly from the side. "Well, he wasn't human before, right?" Dinner continued, and the uncle began lecturing again. "Mary, why are you still so careless? You treat a stranger like family, and you agreed to let Nelia train guests? Don't you know they're not allowed to raise military forces there?" The little squirrel got angry. Why does this uncle keep lecturing Mary? But the girl stopped him. There was a conflict nearby, so I had to act this way, but I raised the taxes in that area and allowed them to pay with cotton and grain. As long as they don't have enough food, they won't be able to support too many soldiers. Since it's on the border, they claim it's for fear of unrest and that they need the soldiers. If things settle, they will reduce the military force. The uncle was surprised. For a moment, he felt as if the Duke had returned. He never expected his niece to become so reliable. "Did you get a new teacher?" he asked. "No, it was Eureka who helped me a lot. This proposal was his idea. He's young, but very capable, right?" The uncle didn't expect the boy to be so smart, but he still refused to admit it. "It's nothing to be surprised about. Your father revised the land laws in his youth on a large scale. He was a genius. Uncle, please take care of Eureka. Both my mother and I consider him family. He makes us feel like Eureka has really come back." The uncle showed a sorrowful expression. "Mary, I still believe the real Eureka will come back one day." At that moment, the Duchess suddenly arrived. Her smile was gentle, and she had a meaningful conversation with Mary about the orphanage. It had been a long time since she had seen her sister so happy, and the warm scene moved her. Perhaps she shouldn't have held such a strong prejudice against the girl. In the end, Mary sent her mother to rest and stayed behind with the two of them. The little squirrel was nearly starving. "Sorry," the man suddenly spoke up. "I shouldn't have treated you that way earlier. As an elder, I was immature. I apologize if I upset you. Because you are so smart, I spoke frankly with you. The Medist family is in a major crisis. The Duke has gone missing." Mary stepped up to lead the family, but she lacks experience and skill, and she's being watched closely by a group of eager individuals. If something were to happen to Mary, the responsibility of leading the family would fall to you. Even though you have no blood relation to Medster, you would be in great danger. I'm just worried because of this. It turns out that the person was worried about himself. Though he can be a bit prideful, he's genuinely concerned about them. Thank you for your concern, but if possible, I'd like to stay here. Being a palace maid isn't important to me. I just really like Mary and Lady Sienna. Although I'll eventually leave, I want to help my sister stabilize the family and make sure Sienna gets better before I go, because they are like family to me. Indeed, your sister is in the best condition she's been in for the past few years. It must be thanks to you. Thank you." After saying this, her uncle awkwardly avoided eye contact. The little squirrel felt a pang of sadness. How could someone so good die so young? She had to make sure that didn't happen. But who poisoned the Count? Because of his complicated personality, she didn't feel comfortable asking others to investigate, so she had to do it herself. She decided to start by checking his body. "Can I come in? You haven't eaten much, so I brought you a sandwich." Albert was about to refuse, but seeing how hard the girl was trying, he couldn't bring himself to say it. "I made this myself. I wanted to share it with you." Her uncle relented. "Fine, I'll have a little. But you came to see me because of what I said to Mary earlier, didn't you?" No, I really was just worried you were hungry." She didn't expect it to taste pretty good. "Don't worry too much. It's not like something bad will happen soon." The little squirrel asked the real reason for her visit. But are you okay? Do you have any enemies or anyone you've had a disagreement with? Albert laughed aloud. No one's my enemy. Even if I die, no one will benefit from it. But just in case, if something happens to me, I hope you'll take care of the girl I've been helping. Her name is Selasik. The doctors say she has an incurable illness that she'll suffer from for life. The little squirrel was stunned. In the original story, Selasik was an antagonist, pretending to be kind but actually skilled at causing trouble. She nearly caused Mary to break up with the crown prince. But in the book, she wasn't sick. The person you're helping is really sick? The doctor says it's an untreatable disease, so I've been very worried about her. The more the little squirrel thought about it, the more something felt off. In the original story, Selasik spent large amounts of money to set up and torment Mary. Despite her poor background, she lived in luxury. Was her uncle perhaps a dupe? Could it be possible he was taken advantage of? He might even be the one to blame. That night, Albert couldn't sleep due to stomach bloating. Recently, no matter what he ate, he seemed to feel unwell. Though he ate more than usual today, the child didn't seem like a bad person. If the real Eureka were still alive, she would probably look like that. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was the doctor from the Duke's residence. I've been sent by Miss Eureka. She finished the sandwich you brought her and now feels very uncomfortable. Albert anxiously rushed forward. Is she okay? The maid is taking care of her, but she's worried about you, so she asked me to check on you. Albert insisted that he was fine and told the doctor to return to care for Eureka, but the doctor spoke with a pitiful tone. The maid asked me to make sure I check on you. It seemed as if the girl was right in front of him, making it impossible for his uncle to refuse. Take a look, she said, but little did she know that after a thorough examination the doctor was stunned. Count, you've been poisoned with a slow-acting toxin for a long time. The next day, Little Squirrel learned from Miri the information she had been seeking. The incident with Selasik happened during the winter transfer window. Not only had she faked an illness with the doctor's help, but she also planned to kill Albert, even forging a will to steal his inheritance. Thankfully, she had asked Renette about the poison, which led her to suspect Albert had been poisoned. Renette had mentioned a herb that could make the poison easier to detect, and she had mixed it into a sandwich. But are you okay, Eureka? Uncle even sent a letter asking about you. He said he wants to personally thank you and take you somewhere. Not long after, in the flickering candlelight, Little Squirrel followed Albert down to the basement. Seeing this place, which resembled a prison, she wondered if he intended to lock himself in here. To stop her sister from marrying the greedy man, Little Squirrel bravely stepped forward. He brought her to a place in Medster where portraits of past family heads were kept. This is the Duke of Medster, he explained. He is the father Mary lost on the battlefield. My brother-in-law has many qualities worth learning from. I've always respected him like an older brother. That's why whenever there's an important matter, I come here. Today, I want to promise in front of his portrait that I will never forget your kindness. If it weren't for you, I might have been poisoned. No, it's all just a coincidence. Albert's expression turned somber again. Miri didn't know about this. I was the one guarding Eureka when she went to the temple for her baptism. It was my insistence that she continue with it. After the attack, when I woke up, Eureka was already gone. I did suspect the Selasik family a bit, but because of my guilt, I chose to ignore it when he said he would replace Eureka. If it weren't for you, I might still be trapped in the past, unaware of what truly matters. Thank you, Eureka. I won't make the same mistake again. I'll do my best to treat my niece well. So, let's get along from now on. Little Squirrel smiled happily. Okay, Count. But Albert didn't seem as happy. Call me Uncle. I don't want my niece addressing me so coldly. Walking behind her uncle, Little Squirrel found him so cute. But in the hallway, there are many portraits of animals. It seems that's because Medster's ancestors were beastmen, though I'm not sure. You could ask Miri. Dinner should be ready now. Will you join us, Uncle? Albert was completely stunned by this, even stuttering. I'm fine, I'm not hungry. Behind them, there was a portrait of a squirrel that looked just like the girl. On the battlefield, the soldiers were cornered with no way out. Suddenly, a huge bolt of lightning struck down from the sky, obliterating the enemies in front of them. Just as everyone thought it was reinforcements from the wizard, they were shocked to find it was young Master Highland, who had scared everyone. He had only thought to try it when he saw his comrades nearly dying, but the magical power in his body had become too chaotic to continue using. He ordered everyone to step back and take a rest first. A soldier then made a request. What about that young master? How about sparing these beasts? Since Duke Medister's disappearance, they had intentionally avoided harming them, as many soldiers had witnessed the Duke transform into a tiger. Although the idea of a human turning into a beast was unbelievable, Little Black smiled and agreed, saying, "There's nothing unbelievable about it, because I've seen it too. Once a squirrel transformed into an adorable child. If Mao Mao could see him now, he'd probably be proud. Thanks to him, I can use magic. Once we go back, I'll repay him and cling to him for the rest of my life." Time flew by quickly, and everyone worked hard for a better life, not only for themselves but also for their loved ones. The long war finally ended on this day. Under René's care, his mother's health had greatly improved, and it had been 5 years since their first meeting. During this time, he had shown unparalleled talent, been granted a title, and became the youngest genius doctor. However, he rejected all offers and insisted on staying as Medister's attending physician. "I'm really grateful you chose Medister. I'll count on you in the future." But in the eyes of the young doctor, the one he should thank was the other person. "I should thank you for allowing us to repay our gratitude." Although his mother's health was cured, Meyer's fate had not changed. According to the war treaty, after the Duke's disappearance, she was supposed to enlist in the army. However, considering that she was the only heir of the Medister family, the royal family proposed a marriage alliance with a war hero, allowing her to stay in the Duke's residence and continue her duties. The hero of the war was the newly minted great mage, Highland John. If his heart didn't belong to someone else, the marriage wouldn't be an issue. However, he had already fallen in love with Crown Prince Romand. Love couldn't be controlled, and so he understood Meyer's troubles. "Sister, you've been sighing a lot lately. Is it because of the marriage to the war hero?" Meyer hadn't expected her younger sister to notice. "I've always known my marriage was an obligation, and I've tried to not fall for His Highness, but it seems like I've still caused trouble for you. Sorry, Eureka. I should be happy, but here I am." Now, John was far from the villain he was in the original story, but the fact remained that Meyer didn't love him. Forcing her to marry someone she didn't love would still lead to tragedy. All her hard work over the years wasn't for this kind of ending. The most important thing was that she wanted her sister to be happy no matter what. She had become human and received so much happiness because of Meyer. This time, let him repay her kindness. "Sister, the royal agreement was for you to marry a palace maid from Medister, right? Since you love the crown prince, I'll handle this for you." With the victory of the war, the streets were filled with cheering crowds, eager to welcome the hero back, especially Highland, the mage. After 5 years, Little Black finally returned. The young boy who had once been dismissed had grown into a hero who could stand on his own. He returned to find his little squirrel. Even after 5 years, he recognized the squirrel at first sight, but the girl he had been longing for was now leaning on someone else. Little Black had just returned from the battlefield, and his world felt like it was crashing down. The day Highland John returned from the battlefield, the streets were packed, and people rushed to catch a glimpse of the hero. His magic had become second nature to him by now. The boy saw the squirrel with a sharp head. With a simple gesture, an acorn appeared in the other person's hand. "This is a gift from our hero," he said. "Lord John really loves small animals, especially squirrels. He even planted a lot of oak trees." Everyone believed he had a fondness for small creatures, but in reality, it was simply boundless love. As for the little squirrel, it decided to exploit a loophole in the original agreement in order to let its sister marry the man she loved. The agreement only required a palace maid, and there were more than just Mary. Upon hearing that her sister wanted to sacrifice herself for her, Mary panicked. "You can't sacrifice yourself for me," she exclaimed. "This isn't a sacrifice," the squirrel replied. "Thanks to you, I became part of the Medister family. Let me fulfill my duty now. Besides, you know my abilities. This time I will solve it successfully." Mary clenched her fists. "You don't know how lucky I am to have you by my side. I just worry things won't go as we hope. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you." "Don't worry, sister," the squirrel reassured her. "Everything will be fine. And he has nothing to fear." Although the former assistant John had fallen in love with Mary at first sight, the story had already taken a twist. Because of his care, John had become a gentle and kind boy. Even if something went wrong, he could always claim it as the actions of a benefactor. However, he also wanted to meet little John soon to see how he had grown over the years. On the first day back at the Duke's estate, little John was already thinking about how to find the little squirrel. He locked Ella and Teasen in the basement, but the girls made a mistake. The letter they had written on Mary's behalf, proposing a marriage discussion, was ruthlessly crumpled up and thrown out. He wasn't interested in marrying anyone else. The servant was anxious. "If you want to control the capital's social scene, you need to show some courtesy to the Medister family." "Why should I care about controlling social scenes?" John responded casually. "I just want to live happily with the woman I love." The servant was dumbfounded. "But if the woman you like finds out about your cold attitude, it could damage your image." "I don't care," John replied, "because she knows my warm side." However, it wouldn't be good if Mary's situation got misunderstood. Thinking that he might change his mind, he decided, "Tomorrow I'll visit Medister. Since he just returned and sent a letter, it seems he wants to discuss a marriage. I need to go and break the engagement immediately." Whenever his thoughts troubled him, he liked to come to this place and express his worries to the portrait on the wall. "The war has finally ended, Duke. Although it's a good thing for everyone, it also means that the temple will act again. Why would they fabricate lies to take me away?" Miri had said that the Medister ancestors were orcs, but it was just a legend. He couldn't find any evidence in the family books either. Yet, he always felt that the Medister legend, the missing children, and the divine beasts managed by the temple were connected. He wouldn't give up on the investigation. "Please support me, Duke." Miri never expected John to suddenly visit, demanding to see her immediately. "Does he really want to marry me?" she wondered. "We didn't even do anything to make him fall for me the first time we met, and he doesn't seem like someone who would easily fall in love." Eureka, who was accompanying his mother to see Renette, was so nervous that he almost had a stomachache. Just then, a letter was handed to him. It turns out that Eureka already knew about it and asked him to try to delay things until he could get there, waiting until after he finished examining his mother. Renette, a bit shy, wanted to invite him for tea, but the man, apologizing, said, "Sorry, I have guests. I must go now." The little dog looked disappointed. "Well, there's nothing we can do," he muttered. "But you don't look well." The man assured him it was fine, but the truth was, it was because John had returned. He was so nervous that he hadn't rested well. "By the way, do you have any medicine that can make someone look sick?" Renette looked puzzled, and the squirrel explained, "I want someone to think I look pitiful." He never thought something so outrageous would exist. The other person's eyes instantly lit up. "Of course I have something. This medicine can reverse magic to make someone look worse." It was something he had developed to avoid being mistaken for a laborer by John. "I didn't expect a top student to do such things," he commented. The squirrel took the medicine and drank it. "How is it?" "Not bad," the man replied, but as soon as he spoke, a wave of dizziness hit. "Why is the effect so strong?" Renette panicked. "It shouldn't be like this. It hasn't even taken effect yet." The man grabbed Renette's arm, his head spinning. "Can you help me a bit?" While waiting for the dizziness to subside, the door nearby suddenly opened, and someone walked out. He vaguely heard the person say something about breaking off an engagement. The man turned around to bid farewell to the person inside. When he faced forward again, his eyes widened in shock. His long-awaited girl was standing right before him. John hurried toward him, asking, "Why are you here?" Upon learning that his fiancée was the Squirrel, John wished he could kill the man who had just broken off the engagement. However, instead of rushing to restore the engagement, he was eating the flowers of another man. Not long ago, Miri had welcomed him, storming in with great anger. 5 years had passed since they last met, and she felt the man had become even more terrifying, especially with that cold, emotionless expression that could freeze someone to death. She really didn't want to stay in the same room with him, so she decided to follow Eureka's suggestion. "It's rude to show up without replying to a letter," she remarked. John responded arrogantly, "You've assessed me accurately and fairly, but why are you here? As a war hero and heir of the Highland family, I understand why you want to form an alliance, but I don't feel obligated to meet your expectations." "What do you mean by that?" "I want to break off the engagement." The girl thought of countless possibilities, but never imagined that he would be the one to initiate the breakup. She was momentarily stunned. John assumed she was unwilling. "Your intentions are useless. I must break the engagement." Only then did she snap back to reality. "No, I think the same way as you." "That's great," he exclaimed. "Prepare the notarization for the engagement dissolution right away." John Highland and Mary Modeste, maid of the palace according to the law, break off the engagement, he wrote down. Miri, still dazed, recalled that Eureka had said, though Highland had made military achievements, his political influence was weak, so he probably wouldn't agree to the annulment easily. But he had told her to delay him, so she would follow her brother's advice. "Lord Highland, please wait a moment. I have a sister named Eureka. She's also a maid of the palace. I'd like to ask you to wait for her. She will come soon to notarize." "No need," he said coldly. "Whether it's a palace maid or anyone else, I don't want anything to do with Modeste anymore. It only brings trouble and inconvenience." He was really starting to get angry. "This guy hasn't even met my sister, and he dares say that? All right, since you insist, I hope my sister never meets you. Add one more clause to the annulment document. No matter what happens, it cannot be changed. Do you agree?" "Of course." "You can write it exactly like the first one. I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore." Miri grew increasingly angry, but she maintained her smile. "What you don't wish for will never happen." After signing all the documents, she spoke sternly. "You are too arrogant and rude. I hope you take responsibility for your words and don't go back on them." At this point, Little Schemer still hadn't realized anything was wrong. "Of course, I would never change my mind. Don't worry. Before long, I will visit His Majesty and formally request the annulment of our engagement. Now, if you'll excuse me." He hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. The only thing left was to find Mao Mao. However, he never imagined that his beloved would suddenly appear before him. "Why are you here?" He reached out a trembling hand, trying to confirm whether this was reality or just a dream. But Mary's next words struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Eureka, everything is settled." Only then did he realize Little Squirrel was the sister Mary had mentioned, Eureka. And Mary's revenge had just begun. "We just signed the annulment papers and confirmed that they are absolutely final." Little Squirrel felt the pressure. "Really?" "Of course. Though his character is questionable, he never goes back on his word." The girl's voice carried a slight chill. "Thank you for your cooperation, Lord Highland. I'd like to express my gratitude. Could you stay for a moment?" She then recounted how she became human and how she ended up as a palace maid. "I see. It's amazing that you succeeded in becoming human. I've always wondered where you were and if you were doing well." "I felt the same. We parted so suddenly back then, without even having time to say anything. Seeing you return safely makes me truly happy." As he looked at the warmth in her smile, it finally felt real to him. She hadn't changed at all. Not long ago, he had thought that smile belonged to him alone, that he was the only one who could help her become human. But now, she had found other family. "Who was that man with you just now?" "His name is Renette. He's the attending physician of Modeste and also my friend." Little Schemer's heart, which had been on edge, finally settled. A friend? Good. At least he's not your fiancé. Medist officially announced that I was adopted from an orphanage, so could you keep my true origins a secret? The temple even came looking for me before. Of course, he would never expose Little Squirrel's identity. Soon, he would eliminate the temple entirely. Wait, what's wrong with your face? The girl suddenly felt dizzy again. I don't know. I thought I was fine, but now I feel strange. I'm going to find Renette. Before she could finish her sentence, her body collapsed, her clothes falling empty to the ground. Her little ears twitched. She had turned back into a squirrel,